Okay, we are not Cowboys Collective. I don't know why. I was like, why is our intro 30 seconds? It's the second time that happened. Last time I actually caught it. I did not catch it this time. Welcome to another edition of Giants Collective. Fuck the Cowboys. Thank you. Yeah. Of course, Giants Collective powered by our good friends at BetUS. Big shout out to them for powering the streams. You guys can check us out on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. You can check us out on Instagram and TikTok as well, putting up videos. Follow us on Instagram, man. Follow us on Instagram. It's Giants Collective. We've been putting up a lot of, parts of this show on there. So check us out there. If you want to become a member of the channel, you get all the great benefits of that. I guess there's some points reward system in the chat now, too. I don't know anything about that. But you guys get custom emojis. You get your name at the end of the thing. You get monthly member messages and all that good stuff. I think that a lot of that's going to start up when we actually get to training camp. And we have a lot more to discuss because, as you know, right now it's kind of a downtime. But there are a couple things to discuss to begin with. And one thing I know we brought him up last week, and I was looking at some of the standouts in OTAs. Jalin Hyatt is everywhere right now. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm excited to hear this because we know Russell Wilson came in right away and mentioned he's got untapped potential. And when you hear that he's been a standout of camp, it's almost like he's reborn again or rejuvenated or whatever it is. He can be such a big part of what the Giants do on offense. Adriana, what are your thoughts on Jalin Hyatt? Do you think that, OTAs are one thing, obviously training camp is another, but do you think he has a chance to not just make the team, but to have an impactful season this year?
Yeah, I really feel like it's his job to lose. When you look at the other guys that are competing for that wide receiver 4 spot, it's basically him and undrafted free agents. Some of the other guys that I've seen at the OTAs who have caught touchdowns or passes from, any of the quarterbacks, it's mostly been UDFAs, obviously outside of the top 3 guys. So I really feel like he has a great opportunity, like you said, to not only make the roster, but to do something with it. And, I kind of feel like he's gotten a bad reputation so far, and a lot of that is his own doing. But I just feel like he's got to get it together this year, or he is going to quietly kick himself out of the league. And I really feel like this could be like a Kadarius Toney 2.0 situation. Now, I don't think he's anywhere near as bad as Kadarius Toney is, but I just think if it continues that way, where he seems to have an attitude during the season, and he's complaining about not getting on the field, or he's getting on the field and very clearly making mistakes or acting like he doesn't care. And then after the game, he's running out instead of talking to the media. He's not even showering, doing all these things that he did last year. If he does that again this year, I think, the time could be up for him. But I really feel like the fact that, like you said, too, that Russell Wilson has gone above and beyond and out of his way to speak very highly about Jalin Hyatt. We've seen them start to build this rapport already. And, I love Jalin Hyatt coming out of college. He has potential. I think a lot of it is just he has to figure it out on his own, and he has to put the work in. And, Daboll says a lot that every year is a new year. And I hope that he looks at it like that too. Like, this is an opportunity for me to put last year behind me. I have a new quarterback who really believes in me and, is giving me the confidence that I need as a wide receiver to go out there and feel like I can make plays. And, one thing that we've seen so far from Russell is that he is leading the wide receivers. He's hitting them in stride. He's doing all these things from a quarterback's perspective that we haven't seen since Eli Manning. And I think that alone is really also going to help Jalin Hyatt. So I feel like it's really up to him. He has to put in the work. I don't know if you guys noticed, he looks like he beefed up a little bit. And I saw that some of the reporters said, I think he put on about 10 pounds this offseason. So I do feel like he's had a little bit of a change of heart, and, he feels like it's up to him to really step up. But he has the speed, he has the ability and the capabilities to be a good wide receiver. He just has to put it all together. So I'm confident that Russell can really help him out. And I'm trying not to be like delusional in my excitement about it. But I feel like this is a good opportunity for him, and the time is now. And he's a guy that I'm going to be really excited to watch in training camp, especially in with the ones and in with Russell.
Fuck it, Jalin Hyatt down there. Jalin down there somewhere. Watch it. Chris, what do you think? You think Jalin Hyatt can have an impact on the Giants in 2025?
I hope he proves me wrong, but I'm not nearly as optimistic as Adriana is. I do think he's the favorite to be the wide receiver 4 right now. And I do think if injuries happen, maybe he does have a bigger impact than I'm anticipating that he will. If a guy like Darius Slayton goes down and he gets a more expanded role, I don't know. I just feel like Shane and Daboll are kind of out on him a bit, and maybe I'll be dead wrong, and I hope I am. But they went out, they extended Darius Slayton. There's been rumors that they've been looking into Gabe Davis. Both have a somewhat similar skill set to that of Jalen Hyatt. But what I will say, from an optimistic standpoint, Russell Wilson is a much better fit. Like, not even comparing him to Daniel Jones in terms of quarterback. Like, he's obviously a better quarterback, but just his style of play. We all know that Russell Wilson is one of the better deep ball throwers in the league. And that you would think would lend itself to Jalen Hyatt having a bigger year. I was actually on Bobby's podcast a couple of days ago, and we talked about Jalen Hyatt, and we kind of both agreed that if we had to project what we thought he was going to do this year, we think it's going to be similar to like what John Ross did when he was a New York Giant. Like, he's going to have one or two big plays, catch a 40 or 50-yard touchdown, but in the end have about 250, 300 yards. I pray he proves me wrong. We spent the 3rd-round pick on the guy. We traded up to get him. He's definitely got a high ceiling, like in terms of his speed, but he hasn't put it all together since he's been in the NFL. And this offseason, at least to me, hints towards that the Giants don't have a lot of faith in him with the bringing back of Darius Slayton, the interesting Gabe Davis. But hey, we'll find out, right? If there's a couple injuries that happen, he certainly could get a more expanded role than I'm anticipating going into the year. And we all know the Giants aren't allergic to injuries.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that he's not like John Ross.
Yeah.
I made a comparison before. I'm hoping he's more like Deshaun Jackson. Like Deshaun Jackson is a guy that's kind of what I think he could do, because Deshaun Jackson's not a guy that would get you 7 or 8 catches in a game, but he might get you 3, but 2 of them were for deep touchdowns. If nothing else, Jalen Hyatt can, to me, even if he's not catching a ton of passes, just the fact that he can stretch the field and loosen up the defense and allow a guy like Wandale to work underneath the defense, allow a guy like, Malik Neighbors to work underneath the defense, and he can just, make the defense think, hey, we can't just play, in a 10-yard blanket and just play up on these guys, because I got a couple guys that can run the ball. And we know that Russ likes to throw the ball deep. So being able to stretch out the defense is not only going to allow your receivers to work underneath routes, posts and outs and slants and everything else, it can loosen up the running game as well. If defenses have to worry about deep ball threats and they can't just jam the box on a consistent basis or have all their defenders up there knowing Daniel Jones was going to try to stretch a field, or Tim Boyle or whoever the hell we had throwing the ball back there.
Yeah.
It's easy for defense to say, we're not worried about them being a steep. Maybe Jalen Hyatt could just at least put the thought in their head, hey, we got to
open up the middle of the field for the tight end, or I agree. His speed out there alone, he should be out there more than he's been since he's been a Giant. That I certainly agree with.
Yeah. So I mean, if nothing else, maybe he can do that, and if he can catch a couple deep plays, we saw it. Was it the game against? Was it Arizona when we came back? We were waiting on, and he had a couple big catches. Hopefully he can do that. But like Adriana said, he's got to work hard. And I think adding 10 pounds, I think it shows he's working. He stood out in OTAs, means he's working. If he was being lazy, he wouldn't be a standout by a stretch of the imagination. He probably knows, listen, I do have a guy that can throw the ball. I do have a guy, like you said, Adriana, I do have a guy that believes in me. He said I have untapped. It's got to mean a lot to a guy that's kind of been in the doghouse and really hasn't lived up to expectation, to have a future Hall of Fame quarterback say, I believe in you, kid. And, I know you can do it. That's got to be a major confidence boost to him. And confidence goes a long way, man. I say it all the time, not just in football. Anything you do in this life, if you do it with confidence, you're going to do it better than if you do it with doubt. So it's just another aspect of what Russell Wilson brings to his team, Russ isn't an elite pass thrower anymore or whatever, but I just feel like the intangibles that he brings, the leadership that he brings, these are qualities that this team has been missing for years. And this is why I'm optimistic that the Giants can at least be competitive this year. Are we going to win 13 games and win a Super Bowl? That's probably not going to happen. But are we going to be embarrassed the way we've been the last few years? I don't think that's going to happen either. I think we're somewhere in between. But, it's only June. Like I said, talk to me on Halloween and let's see how we're feeling about it.
Yeah.
Well, and I want to piggyback off what you said, Bad Dog, about us being competitive this year, because I've seen some comments on some of my most recent videos. I've seen people say, oh, we're going to go 3-14 this year. The Giants suck. 80% of the roster is the same. Why do you have any faith? And I think that it's fair to say that, yes, majority of the roster is the same as it was last year, but you have to look at the positions and the players that they brought in this offseason. We upgraded our quarterback, which is the biggest position on the field. And I know everyone can say, oh, he's not the Russ Wilson that he was. Would you rather have Daniel Jones back out there? Would you rather have Tommy DeVito, Tim Boyle, Tyrod Taylor? I mean,
Drew
these are
Lock,
the
Jake Fromm, Mike Glennon.
seriously, like this is what we have dealt with for the last 6 years. So I understand that Russell Wilson is not Tom Brady, but he's still a 10-time Pro Bowler. He still won a Super Bowl. He still can throw a beautiful moon ball. He's still capable of running an offense and reading defenses and moving the ball down the field. He still has a lot of great qualities and skills and talents that he's bringing to this football team that our last 6 years of quarterbacks have not been able to do. So you have to look at the quarterback and immediately say, well, we upgraded that position, which is huge. And look, if it doesn't work out for Russell Wilson in the future, then hopefully it's going to work out with Jackson Dart. But between him, Jameis Winston, and Dart, you've still got options there that are better than what we have had for the last few years. Then look at our secondary. Our secondary is significantly improved. We brought in Jevon Holland and Paulson Adebo, who both have already had interceptions in practice. And I know people are going to say, oh, it's just OTAs. It doesn't matter. I get that. But you've got two guys who are brand new to this team. They're brand new to the scheme, the defense, the players, the whole thing. They don't have a lot of camaraderie with the team. There's not a lot of cohesiveness with them yet. And the fact that they're already making plays in practice, it's better them doing what Tay Banks is doing, which is a whole lot of fucking nothing from what I've seen the last 5 practices. So I take that over him any day. So you've got 2 upgrades there. You've got Chauncey Golston, who was pretty good for the Cowboys, who's going to be a good rotational player. Abdul Carter, like, I know the schedule is really hard, and I know our football team is not amazing, but I think there are a lot of reasons to be optimistic that the team as a whole is going to be better. They're probably not going to go to the playoffs, and they're not going to win 15 games, but I think it's really fair to say that we're going to see a much more competitive football team. I think we're going to be able to keep games closer than maybe a lot of people think we're going to be able to. And I just think that, like, right now, at least, there should be room for some optimism. Like you said, talk to us on Halloween, and it might be a different story. But for now, I think it's fair to be a little optimistic. Like, you have to look at the rational piece of this and those specific positions and the players that we upgraded. Like, even Cam Scatterbo is probably going to be better than Singletary at this point in his career. So there are players that we brought in, Marcus Bowe, like, I don't know. I just don't think it should all be doom and gloom.
I agree with a lot of what you're saying. I think we're a lot closer to the middle than we are the bottom.
Yes.
The problem is the schedule is probably going to make it so our record is closer to the bottom than the middle, in my opinion. But on paper, I think we're closer to the 16 to 20 range than we are to the 32 to 28 range. Let's put it that way. I think we're around the middle of the pack team. It just so happens that this year our schedule on paper, and you can't just go by paper, things change throughout the course of the year, looks brutal. And I just find it really challenging to see us win more than 6 or 7 games this year because of that. But I think we're much closer to an average NFL football team than a lot of people may realize. I agree with a lot of what you said.
So you talk about, Adriana, that we're bringing a lot of the same team back, which is true. I mean, you can only change so much in one offseason. But one thing we are bringing back, and you got to hope they stay healthy, Andrew Thomas missed a shitload of time. That's a huge guy you're bringing back that just missed time last year. Kayvon Thibodeau missed games. Dexter Lawrence, Bobby O, Dexter Lawrence. Like, these are huge, right? These are huge pieces. These are cornerstone pieces that missed a lot of time for the Giants. Now, would it have mattered in the end? Probably not. But if they're healthy, what's that?
Neighbors with the concussion.
Right, Neighbors had a concussion. Right. So if these guys stay healthy, I mean, you're talking about the best players on the team. And I know we didn't have a lot of great players in this team last year, but the best ones got hurt. So let's hope they stay healthy, because when we went to the playoffs in 2022, it's because our main players stayed healthy. Barkley stayed healthy. Jones stayed healthy. I know Daniel Jones sucks, but he was our starting quarterback. And Dexter Lawrence stayed healthy, and Andrew Thomas stayed healthy. And it was a big deal that these guys all stayed healthy. So you mentioned the secondary, huge upgrades. Abdul Carter's going to upgrade any defense, man. This guy is a freaking beast. So, yeah, you should – I don't even want to be optimistic, but I think hopeful is a good word. I think you can be hopeful that the Giants are going to be competitive. And you're not going to rebuild. You're not going to go worst to first. That rarely ever happens. But if you can see improvements in this team to the fact that they get themselves competitive against the best teams in the NFL, Then you're sitting there saying to yourself, well, we're setting this rookie quarterback up, or he'll be a first-year quarterback next year because he won't be a rookie, obviously, but you're setting him up for success, which is something they didn't do for Daniel Jones. I think I'm more hopeful about the process now. I feel like these drafts, the last 2 off seasons, Joe Schoen has done a good job. People can kill him for Barkley. I get it. But I feel like he's building in the right direction. Stuff's got.
I still won't kill him for Barkley. I'm sorry. I still won't kill him for Barkley.
Yeah, I won't either. I know people will. I understood. I completely understood that. But I think this is going to start to show up in the field now that he's starting to have. Eventually, it has to show up in the field.
Well, and also the schedule is tough. Like, no one is going to disagree with that. But we've seen this happen year after year. And 2022 with the Giants is a perfect example. Is you never know what's going to happen week to week. And they could get really lucky on some weeks. If they play the Chiefs while Patrick Mahomes miraculously gets injured, that game is already different. If they're going into that game 1-1 or amazingly 2-0, imagine the difference that makes, even if they're down Travis Kelce. Like, I just think so much happens in the NFL that you never know. Take the 49ers too. They just re-signed Brock Purdy. They lost 12 players this offseason. Christian McCaffrey was out essentially the whole year last year, and they won 6 games. They were not the same football team without him. So you look at what happened to them in free agency with all the players that they lost. If Christian McCaffrey is not the same as he was before that injury, they are not the same football team. And it's a 1:00 game at home. So you never know.
They also lost
The
Daboll.
Giants are going to go out and beat the Chiefs and Niners? Probably not, but you never know. There's always a chance.
I think the Niners are beatable. I don't think the Niners are as good as they've been in years past. They lost Daboll also. I'm not. They're better than we are, but I think that's a winnable game when I look at the Giants' schedule. I don't think the Niners are the team they were.
Yeah, I agree. I was going to say I think we can beat the Niners. We're talking about the secondary. There's another guy that has been standing out at OTAs. Dane Belton. Dane Belton has been a show out at OTAs. And ever since Belton got into the league, he's kind of flown under the radar, in my opinion, but he seems like he has a nose for the ball. He's got like 5 interceptions. He hasn't started many games. He's played in games, but he doesn't get a lot of snaps. He's got like 5 fumble recoveries. He had a few pass defense last year. Dane Belton is a guy that could definitely give you depth back there without question, the strong safety position. Chris, how important is it to have – I'm not saying Dane Belton's going to be a star, but he's looking good. I feel like Dane Belton could step up this year, especially with a guy like Jevon Holland. You have some leadership in that secondary now, which we missed when we got rid of McKinney. There really wasn't a leader. Was Jason Pinnock the leader last year? Yeah. How important is it to have depth in your secondary? Because it was very thin last year, and if Dane Belton can give us some kind of depth, it could be a strong unit.
Yeah, well, that was the book on Dane Belton when we drafted him, if I recall. I think he was like a ball hawk in college. I think he had like 4 or 5 interceptions last year. I think he played at Iowa, if I'm not mistaken. I don't even remember. Iowa, yeah. So that was the book on him when we drafted him. So hopefully, he comes up with some plays. He's had some plays. I remember he had an interception. I think it was last year. Maybe it was the year before, late in the season. So, yeah, of course it's important to have depth. And when we talked about that when we had Bobby on, when he was talking about how he doesn't feel any of the rookies are going to have a major impact on this year's roster outside of Abdul Carter. I'm like, in a way, that's a good thing. That means that you're starting to have improved depth, that you don't have to throw these rookies in right away. So I think the Giants' depth is definitely the best it's been since Joe Schoen has taken over as the general manager, because he's coming up on the 4th year being able to build the team. But yeah, I mean, hopefully Dane Belton shines. I don't think he's going to get that much playing time because of the upgrades we made in the secondary with Jevon Holland. Obviously, we have Tyler Nubin as well, but he may see some action in certain packages on 3rd down. But yeah, I think he's definitely a quality depth player for sure. And when he's been on the field, he's been somewhat impactful. He just hasn't been on the field a whole lot since he's been in the pros.
Yeah, there's a 4th round pick, I think. Well, John, how important is it to have that depth? How big of a piece could he be depth-wise?
Yeah, he also plays special teams, and he's done a nice job when he's played special teams too. So it's so important. I mean, I think we've talked about this too over the years, and I don't know if you guys listened to Big Blue Banter, but recently they did a recap of the roster where it was when Joe Schoen was hired in 2022 compared to where it is now. And it's just it's not even close from what it was then to what it is now and how it has slowly evolved, and it's taken a lot of time. But I mean, that roster was horrific. Like, it is a miracle that they won as many games as they did. And that's why, Brian Daboll is still here, right? Because of what he was able to do with that god-awful roster. But, something else that I've seen too is that Cordell Flott has had some nice pass breakups during practice. And he's another guy who's the same class as Dane Belton, and who, has kind of been hit or miss a little bit, but he's a guy that if, God forbid, Drew Phillips goes down, I won't feel like the world is ending. Like, there's a little piece of depth there too. So obviously I want Drew Phillips and everyone else going nowhere, but it is nice to feel like maybe there's actually a little bit of depth. And I think we could talk through this through quite a few positions. I mean, you look at the tight ends, there's 5 tight ends that I think are capable. The running backs are a good group. Even the offensive line, there's like 19 offensive linemen on this roster. They're not all great, but if, God forbid, Andrew Thomas goes down, I think they have a solid plan in moving Illuminor to left tackle and then putting Marcus Bowe at right tackle. So, I feel like I have a little bit of confidence that the roster is at the point where there is some depth there. It's not all amazing depth. It needs to be improved upon. But I think for the first time since Joe Schoen has been here, yes, there are more positions than not that have decent quality at more than just the starting spot.
Yeah, defensive line also has some depth too with Chauncey.
And the quarterback.
Yep.
Yeah.
Quarterback, great point. So that should be good. Now let's get into this, because you mentioned the tight end spot. And I actually did a video on this today because I heard these rumors about Kyle Pitts being a New York Giant. Now, I loved Kyle Pitts.
Yes, you did. I remember that.
Loved him. I was like, I didn't really know if I wanted to take a tight end at 4, but I loved Kyle Pitts.
What draft was that? When
2020. Was it 2020?
2020?
I think that wasn't
the Andrew Thomas year.
I think it was. Maybe
because you wanted Simmons the Andrew Thomas year.
I liked Simmons, but I gotta have to look it up because it's gonna
2021. He was drafted.
2021.
That was the year we traded down and we took Tony.
Yeah. That's right. But but I loved Kyle Pitts.
You did.
I thought Kyle Pitts was going to be a massive superstar. His rookie season, he had over 60 catches. He had 1,000 yards. He looked every bit the part. He's tall. He's athletic. He's like a wide receiver playing tight end. Adriana, what do you think about the rumors about Kyle Pitts? What are your opinions? Do you think the Giants need him? You think stay the hell away from the guy?
I just think we're not in a position to be trading away draft capital for a tight end. The tight end is one of the actual groups that I feel like I just said, there's a little bit of depth there. They just drafted Thomas Fidone, and I know he was a 7th round draft pick, but coming out of high school, this guy was the #1 high school recruit, higher than Brock Bowers. So he's got talent. He unfortunately just got derailed by injuries. But, from what I've heard from some of the beat writers is they've said to really keep an eye on him, that he's looked pretty good so far during camp. He's a big dude, and I feel like size is half the battle when you're a tight end. And look, Daniel Bellinger had a really good rookie year, and since the offensive line has been a mess, he unfortunately has not been used as a pass catcher. But Chris Manhertz has been a pretty good blocking tight end for them last year. Theo Johnson was having a nice season before he got injured. So I think, and they also have Greg Dulcich, who was a guy that played a little bit last year. The Giants seemed to like, so they brought him back. So I just feel like if they're going to trade away draft capital for someone, I would like it to not be a tight end. I don't care whether or not it's Kyle Pitts. I just think it should probably be an offensive lineman or a wide receiver, maybe. I don't know. Tight end would not be in my top position, even though, I think bringing in Kyle Pitts, if they got him for free or a veteran contract, sure, why not? Yeah. But I don't think it's worth trading away for him. I actually think that our tight ends are going to be a pretty good group this year, and I think that there's some nice talent there.
Chris, what do you think about Kyle Pitts at the Giants?
I mean, if it was for free, sure. But like she said, but I actually really like Theo Johnson, and I think Theo Johnson is a similar type of tight end to that of Kyle Pitts. He's a guy that you expect to be more of a playmaker in the passing game than your old school block first tight end. So I'd rather just see Theo Johnson get more of an expanded role this year. I liked what I saw out of him before he got hurt when they started to utilize him more in the offense late in the year. And I was a big fan of that pick when they made it. So I'm not a fan of giving up significant draft capital to get Kyle Pitts, who is in the last year of his rookie deal. So I would rather just roll out Theo Johnson and the group that we currently have. And I think it's good enough. And like Adriana said, if they were going to make a trade on the offensive side of the ball, I'd probably not that I think they're going to make a significant trade at this point, but I'd probably rather it be a wide receiver than a tight end. I'd probably steer clear of Kyle Pitts unless they were giving him to us for next to nothing.
There's a lot of go ahead, Audrey. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I forgot to mention that this tight end group too, every single player has been hand selected by this front office and by Daboll. None of them are from Dave Gettleman. They're not, random players that are from the previous regime. These are all guys that Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll either drafted or picked up as a UDFA. And they actually drafted 3 of them. So, between Fedoni, Bellinger, and Theo Johnson, they were their guys that they chose. So I think that also leads me to believe, I don't know why they'd be going out for another tight end when they basically picked these 5 guys to kind of be, their future, or at least the current group for tight ends.
What the thing about Kyle Pitts that I just don't believe he fits here. There's a number of reasons. Number one, he's owed almost $11 million this year. We don't have any cap space. What are you doing? And you're bringing him in for 1 year. What are you going to extend him? Like you mentioned, we drafted Theo Johnson the year before. The front office really likes Theo Johnson. They went out. They got Thomas Fedoni this year. Like you mentioned, they drafted Daniel Bellinger in the 4th round a couple of years ago. 3 of the tight ends on this team were drafted by this regime. Why would you go out and get a guy like Kyle Pitts? He don't block. He's more of a slot receiver. That's kind of what he is. So he don't block. So what are you going to take Wan'Dale Robinson off there? How are you going to utilize Kyle Pitts? And are you going to extend him? Are you going to bring him back here? Because what's the point of him just coming back here for 2025? We have much bigger issues than the tight end spot, in my opinion. The other thing is Brian Daboll in his career has really ever utilized that. I actually have the stats because when I was doing this video, I looked at this. In 2018, the tight end with the highest amount of receptions. This is when Daboll was the offensive coordinator. Josh Allen was their quarterback. So it's not like Josh Allen. Now, Josh Allen didn't have a good 2018, but Charles Clay, 21 receptions, led the tight ends. The next year, it was Knox, 28 receptions. 2020, it was Knox, 24 receptions. And then 2021, he had 49 receptions. So that's Daboll obviously left Buffalo in 2021, came here in 2022. Since then, Dalton Kincaid, now maybe Kincaid's way better than Knox, but Dalton Kincaid had 107 receptions in the last 2 years, and he missed a lot of time last year. He had 73 catches in 2023. So obviously, Brian Daboll's never really utilized the tight end. I think Daniel Bellinger led the tight ends with 30 receptions the year before. Maybe it was Theo Johnson had 29 last year. The tight end has never been an integral part of a Brian Daboll offense. So why would you do it now? You got Malik Neighbors, you re-signed Darius Slayton, you drafted Wan'Dale Robinson, you drafted 2 tight ends the last 2 years. To me, I love Kyle Pitts. Don't get me wrong. I think Kyle Pitts can be, I still think he can be a superstar. You don't have that talent. The talent can only be held down for so long. He's got to get out of there. And I hope he succeeds wherever he goes because I'm a fan. I just don't think he fits here. And I would hate the Giants to have to give up. There's just, again, even if they got him for a 6th-round pick, what are you going to do with him? If we were in a position where we're contending for a Super Bowl and that's the guy that puts you over the edge and you can use him, and I'm not saying he's Travis Kelce, but if you can use him like Kelce, if you can use him like George Kittle, if you could use him like that to go with a team that's competing for a Super Bowl, do it. Yeah. We're not in that position. To me, it doesn't make a lot of sense. So that's my take on it. Sorry, that was long-winded.
No, I agree with you.
By the way, big shout out to BetUS. And BetUS sponsors the stream. They power the Giants Collective stream. You go to BetUS. Check out the promo code YouTube150. Enter that. You're going to get 150% match deposit bonus on your first deposit, a 125% match deposit bonus on your second and third deposits, all the way up to $2,000 of bonus cash. Great customer service. It's 24/7, 365. The fastest payouts in the business within 24 hours. And you get 10% gambler's insurance against all your net losses as long as you stay active every 6 months. Terms and conditions apply. And when you gamble, please do it responsibly. Never bet more than you can afford to lose. And our graphic tonight is Giants wins after their first 5 games. Now, what I want to bring up, because I saw we got this graphic, and this was a talking point I wanted to do. And Chris, we'll start with you. 2 wins is the lowest odds here, plus 175. That obviously is the betting favorite. If they were 2-3, after the first 5 games, would you be excited about that?
Let me pull up the Giants schedule again just to make sure I remember the
right
first
before we play the Eagles. We get Washington, Dallas, Kansas City, New Orleans, and I forgot the fifth.
It's not
the Chargers. The Chargers are the other one.
Yes, I'd be happy with 2 and 3. I mean, obviously, I'm hoping for 5 and 0, but realistically speaking,
it's 3,500 to 1, so probably not.
I can't. I at best, I think they're getting a split the first 2 games. Both games are on the road in the division with the Commanders and Cowboys, so that would be incredible if they got a split there. Chiefs at home, Chargers at home. Best case scenario, you're getting a split there. And then Saints on the ceiling for me in the first 5 games is 3 wins. That's like if everything breaks right. I would guess 1 or 2 wins is probably realistic. So I agree with the odds. I think 1 win or 2 wins are the most realistic outcome. I'd probably slightly lean towards 2 wins. I think the defense could find a way to steal a game that you may not necessarily think they'll win out of those first 4. I think they'll probably be a slight favorite against the Saints. So I actually agree with those odds. I think 2 and 3 is probably the most likely outcome, but I think 1 is very close in terms of likelihood, which is why I agree with the odds. I think the odds kind of, resemble that.
Well, John, what do you think? Would you be excited about being 2 and 3?
Yeah, I would, because like Chris said, you're looking at division rivals, the first 2 games that are away. Those are going to be tough. I think if we can split those, I'm immediately feeling pretty good. And then I'm feeling like we can win the Saints. And I think when you look at that 5-game stretch, that's probably the most realistic. We've talked about, we all think the Cowboys are going to take a step back, and the Cowboys, there's probably a chance that they could win that one too. But I'm not feeling so great about them winning 2 division games in the first 2 weeks out of the year away. So I would be happy with 2 wins. I would feel like we're moving in a decent direction. I mean, when you look at those teams as a whole, at this point, I don't really care who it is, maybe outside of the Saints, but if we win 2 out of, those 4 other teams, I would feel pretty good about that.
Yeah, I have to be honest. I think I guess the good news is here, the thing I looked at, which I liked, because I think there's some optimism with the betting here. 3 wins is plus 300. 0 wins is plus 600. That's twice. The odds are twice as long for them to win 0 as it is to win 3. So I guess that's good that people are optimistic that the Giants are going to be a little bit better. 3 wins is possible. I think that we can split with Dallas and Washington. I actually think we could win both. I really do. We always play Washington tough. I have a feeling Washington might have a bit of a hangover the first week, and maybe we sneak one out of there, kind of like we did with Tennessee. Remember, Tennessee went to the AFC Championship game the year before. We went in there, we snuck one out. Washington goes to the NFC Championship the year before. Maybe we go in there and sneak one out of there. And I think we're going to be very competitive with Dallas. And I also think we can beat Los Angeles. I think the Chargers obviously are well coached. They're a good team. I'm not saying they're not, but that's a cross-country flight for them. And I think that's a little bit more difficult for the West Coast team coming east. Because to them, if it's I don't know if that's a 1:00 game or 4:00 game, so would have to let me know.
Well,
it's a 1 o'clock.
It's a 1 o'clock. Yeah.
Okay, so that's 10 in the morning for them, pretty much. I think 3 wins is possible. Would I bet on 3 wins? Yes, I would. Damn it! Let's go Giants. Let's go. I had to get that in there. But I thought those odds are pretty fun, and I also think that 4 wins and 0 wins being that close, I think that's good, man.
I would pick 2, but I think, like you said, I think 3 is possible. I think that's the ceiling. I can't see 4. I think 3 is the ceiling, and 2 is probably the most likely. So I think the odds are spot on.
Yeah. Well, hopefully, I don't know why I just did that, because let's get into some of these comments. Thank you guys for the super chats. You always appreciate it. By the way, if you're enjoying the show, please make sure you guys hit that thumbs up, because it does help out the stream. Make sure you subscribe, share this show out with your friends, your family, whoever. Share it out with your Giants fans. We're closing on 5,000 subscribers. We appreciate that. We're doing this in the off season. You want to be here for the ride, as Russell Wilson would say. It's going to be fun. And if it's not going to be fun, we'll make it fun regardless. If the Giants aren't having fun, we'll find a way to make it fun for you. So, and you can listen to us complain for an hour too. So, whatever. Good, bad, and different. We'll be here. Sebastian Dangu says, I'm so nervous about our offensive line. We need to seriously address it in 2026 for Jackson Dart. I don't need pass rushers flipping Neal's burgers for him. Much love to Evan Neal. I know he works.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I'll start. So, I mean, I'm always nervous about the offensive line. I'm a Giants fan. The offensive line's been a disaster since our last Super Bowl, and even that year, the offensive line wasn't very good. So, yeah, I'm super nervous about the offensive line. I do think the offensive line, if they can stay healthy, which is a major if, because Andrew Thomas has not been able to stay healthy, and he's obviously the linchpin to that offensive line. They could have at least a mediocre offensive line, close to league average offensive line. When you talk about the addition of Russell Wilson, I think that helps the offensive line a bit. And the fact that they're all getting to play together again at the same position. I can't remember the last time, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but I can't remember the last time the Giants had the same exact 5 starters in the same exact 5 positions starting year over year. And I do think that's important when it comes to an offensive line continuity, same offensive line coach, same offensive scheme, a better quarterback. So I think there's reasons to be optimistic that the offensive line won't be a laughingstock if Andrew Thomas is on the field. I'm not telling you they're going to be one of the best in the league, but a healthy unit, I think they could be around league average. So if you call that optimistic, I guess I'm slightly optimistic about the offensive line until such time they suffer some injuries. But the depth, like we touched on earlier, is stronger at that position than it's been in the past. But obviously, if Andrew Thomas goes down, we know it's lights out.
Yeah, he's irreplaceable.
Yeah.
Audrey, what do you think?
I'm a little nervous, but I think I actually feel a little bit optimistic about the line because I do feel like in one of the worst case scenarios, which is that Andrew Thomas goes down, they're going to move Illuminor from right tackle to left tackle, which they had to do last year, and he was okay there. And, we're going to see what Marcus Bowe looks like at right tackle, but I feel like that's a significantly better plan than having Evan Neal as the right tackle. And then we'd all be worried about that all over again. Is what's Evan Neal going to look like? From what we've seen with him at right tackle, he sucks. So I at least feel like, okay, that's a decent enough plan. I still feel like John Michael Schmitz is inconsistent and needs to take a big step forward. I think John Runyon and GVR are good enough, but I do feel like there is some competition there for the first time in a while. Like Evan Neal's going to be at guard, Azudu is going to be at guard, which are 2 guys who are back in their natural position. So hopefully they should be improving and be functional as opposed to useless. And then you've got Marcus Bowe, you've got Austin Schlottman and Aaron Stinney and Reese McIntyre. And, they brought in, I'm sure, like 10 other guys that I'm missing. James Hudson, who actually plays tackle, Stone Forsythe, who plays tackle. So I feel a little bit better in the sense that I think there's a little bit more depth and talent on the offensive line as a whole now than there was last year.
100%. Yeah.
I agree. It's bad.
Andrew Thomas doesn't get injured.
Yeah.
I think I'm more nervous about that than anything else because last year the line certainly wasn't great, but it was serviceable those first few games before he went down. And we know that, Daniel Jones had a tendency to hang on to the ball, and he had a tendency to not be able to read the defense or see where the blitz is coming from. And, if a quarterback's holding on to the ball a quarter of a second longer than he should, that's going to lead to a sack. If you get rid of a guy that's just not afraid to throw the ball away, like Russ, it's going to make the line, I won't say it makes the line look better, but it's obviously going to be better for the line. They don't have to block nearly as long because, a quarterback knows to get rid of the ball, or the quarterback can say, listen, man, it's coming from over here. It's coming from there. He can change the blocking schemes. He can help guys. The quarterback can help the lineman get in the right position and figure out the right guy to block. We have gotten killed on stunts for years. It'd be nice to pick up a stunt now and again. The Giants don't do that. But I think with Andrew Thomas, if he's healthy, the line does have the best depth it's had in years. You hope John Michael Schmitz takes a step forward. And again, I think this also plays back into Russell Wilson. I think Russell Wilson can help a guy like John Michael Schmitz who doesn't have to be the quarterback of the line because Russ can do that. My whole optimism and excitement about Russ is more about here because this was always my biggest knock on Jones was here. I always felt like Jones had physical gifts to throw the ball and to run and do. But
they're raving about him in Indianapolis. I've seen it all over Twitter. His physical gifts, because you're right, he does have physical gifts. I think he's got top 10, 15 physical gifts at the position, but he just doesn't put it all together. That's the problem.
And that's the problem. That's only half the battle. Because how many times have we seen quarterbacks get picked first or second overall and they fail? You don't get picked first or second overall because you don't have athleticism. You don't have gifts. It's about reading defense. It's about getting rid of the ball. It's about making the right throw or the right decision, putting the ball in the right place under duress, especially on this team, because the quarterback's always under duress. But I think I think there's a stabilization there and a calm within Russ. I don't think he's frantic. I don't think he panics. And I think that's going to make the line a lot better. As far as Jackson Dart goes, Sebastian, there's not a doubt in my mind. We saw the Giants take big swings at the defense this year. Next year, it's going to be the offense. They're probably going to get a wide receiver too, and they are going to stack. They will not make that same mistake they did with Daniel Jones, where they did not put anything in front of him. And I would
be pretty surprised next year. And again, this is way too early to be talking about 2026 drafts. I would be pretty surprised next year if our first pick's not a tackle. At least that's the way I feel right now. Because I don't think Illuminor is the long-term answer. And Andrew Thomas is injury prone. We've been talking about that on the show a lot. He's clearly the long-term answer at left tackle, but can he stay on the field? If not the first round, second round. And if not first or second round, I think they're going to spend a boatload on a tackle in free agency. I think it will be a heavily emphasized position in next year's offseason. I'd be stunned if it wasn't.
I agree. Tutto, grazie, paesano. Salutes and respects to the kings and queens of the New York Giants podcast and media, and all diet Giants fans across the ponds. Greeting from me and all my mates currently training in Swansea, Wales. Cheers, mates. Tutto, you're the man. This is my favorite. I love Tutto. Tutto gives me a very difficult. Tutto always gives you a hard time because I like Brian Daboll, and he hates Brian Daboll, so he always gives you a hard time. Bad Dog, it's never been about the rosters, mate. Back to our conversation. It's all about who's in charge of running the D ships, mate, and we ain't got none. He does not like. At least he didn't call him Fat Dumbo this time. But
I'm glad he put on the weight. He was a better coach when he was fat. He's fat again.
He does not like Brian Daboll. Let's ask you this real quick. Audrey, on a scale of 1 to 10, how confident are you Brian Daboll in 2025?
A 6.
Chris, where are you at?
I'll go 7. I don't think I'm not 10. I was 10 after his first year, maybe a 9. But I like him. I still like him. I still think he's got potential to be a really good coach in the NFL.
You know, Russell Wilson, one of the main reasons he wanted to come to New York was to play for Brian Daboll. And I think as bad as the team has been, and I know Tudor don't want to hear this because Tudor don't like him, and I get it because we've sucked. I understand that. And a lot of that falls in the head coach. I'm not saying Brian Daboll is perfect by any stretch of the imagination because he's not. He has his faults. He's made his mistakes. But I think the fact that players want to play for the guy, I think it speaks volumes in the type of coach that he is. I think that speaks more volumes than his win-loss record, honestly, because like you mentioned earlier, Adriana, he dragged a ragtag garbage freaking roster to the playoffs in 2022. What other coach in the league could have got that out of that team? As great as that was, I think it also hurt the Giants. It's weird how that works.
This is the question I'll ask you guys. You've seen it with our former coaches, right? When Pat Shurmur got fired, nobody was rushing to grab him. When Joe Judge got fired, nobody was rushing to grab him.
I mean, he's an analyst at Ole Miss or whatever he is.
I think if Daboll were to be fired, I think he'd get a head coaching job. Whether it was in the NFL or maybe at an elite college program, I do think he would be in demand. So because I think that way, I guess I still have some confidence in him because I think he is very respected throughout the league, both by teams and players. So I think a lot of people think he's a really smart offensive mind, and I don't think the last couple of years have made those people change their opinion. So what do you guys think? Do you think he would be in demand if the Giants were to let him go?
In a heartbeat.
Yeah.
I do. Just because, again, I think what the players say about the coach speaks volumes. I think that players want to play for the guy. I remember Rob Gronkowski, this was 2022, but I remember him saying I would come back and play for Brian Daboll. I mean, did he have a contentious relationship with Daniel Jones? He probably did. Quarterback is obviously your most important position, so you're not doing what the coach tells you. It looks bad on the coach. Makes the team look bad. It didn't work, and that wasn't his guy. I bet you the relationship with Daboll and Dart's going to be much better than it was with Daniel Jones. So we'll see. But I know Tuto don't like Daboll, so he always gives me a hard time. I love Tuto. It's nothing but love.
Speaking of shocking coaching firings, not that I want to go off topic, but what were you?
Oh,
Were you stunned about Thibodeau? Were you stunned about that? I was stunned. And it could easily work out for the Knicks because I definitely get a lot of
Mike Malone coming in here.
What'd you say?
Mike Malone coming in here.
Maybe Mike Malone, maybe John Keller. Who knows? But I get the criticisms. Like he overplays the starters. He doesn't develop young players. He's not an offensive genius. I get that. But the team knocked off the defending champs. They go to the Eastern Conference Finals. They were really a blown 14-point lead away from going to the NBA Finals with like 2 minutes to go. I was stunned that they fired Thibodeau. And I can't even imagine the pressure that's going to be on whoever replaces him. Like, if you fired Thibodeau after the Knicks just had, like, what is the next coach? He's got to win the finals. So I was surprised they fired him.
I don't want to make it into a Knicks thing, but I said this at work because guys are like, oh, Thibodeau, get his ass out of here. I'm like, do you realize the Knicks went to the Eastern Conference Finals for the first time in 25 years? Do you realize they knocked off the defending champions in 6 games? I didn't think they were getting by Boston. They've improved every year. I was stunned. And I want to make it a basketball thing.
Of course.
But I'm going to say this because I stream a shitload of basketball. You guys know this. I hear all the time about how, the athletes, they're so athletic nowadays. It wasn't like it was in the 90s. Those guys are plumbers and they worked at Home Depot. And if these guys are such finely tuned athletes and they're so great, why do we need load management, man? Jordan didn't load manage. That guy wasn't load managed. That guy was playing 40 minutes, 45 minutes every night, every game in the postseason and winning 6 MVP finals. What are we talking about here? What do you mean you're running them into the ground? What are the guys trained for? Shouldn't they be able to play 40 minutes a night, not get tired? If they're such great athletes, I was surprised. I'm not shocked, but surprised.
Surprised.
Right,
Ryan Dunleavy actually said, I was surprised by this. After the firing, Ryan Dunleavy, who of course is a writer for the Giants, he tweeted that Daboll is the second longest tenured coach now in New York sports behind the Yankees manager.
I saw that. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Well, New York sports has definitely been it's been tough, to say the least. All of it. Tudo, thank you again. He says, bad luck to have strong rosters, have the battle, but you need a strong head coach. And do some. They ain't about too many Coughlin. Well, that's true. There's not a lot of Coughlins. I mean, he's a Hall of Fame head coach. There's not many Parcells or Tom Coughlins, but hopefully
Hall of Fame. It's ridiculous he's not in there already.
He will be.
Yeah.
He's going to go in with Eli next year. It's meant to be. Tuto says, speaking of, I'm sure you've had bad coaches. I mean, I'm not saying they don't exist at all. I know they do. I guess I have faith that Daboll can do it. And maybe he can't. I've been wrong many a times, and I'll be wrong many more times. I just have confidence in him. I don't know why, because I wanted Shermer out. I wanted him gone. He was gone. I wanted Judge gone. He was gone. Like, I wanted these guys out after 2 years. I don't have that feeling with Brian Daboll. I don't know why. Maybe it's because he won a playoff game and I've given him some leniency.
And I think I like Shane a lot more than I probably should. I'm pretty confident on Shane. I think if you polled a lot of Giants fans, they would say 3, 2. Yeah. Before the offseason, they would have said 0, a lot of Giants fans. I might be an 8. Like, I like Shane. I think he's had some bad luck, but I think he's had a clear plan. I think he's been smart. I think the Hard Knocks damaged his reputation more than I think he may have deserved with a lot of the clips that people put out. I believe in Shane. I still think he's going to turn this team around. Maybe I'm dumb for thinking that, but I believe in him.
You're a fan, bro. You're a fan. 2 other things that hurt Joe Shane: eating Crustables or Uncrustables, whatever they were. That hurt him. But the one thing that I got really sick and tired of seeing was his son saying, "I want Jaden Daniels," and it was like, "Oh, his son's a better GM." Like, you don't watch football. I don't know what else to tell you, unless you're trolling. If you honestly believe that they didn't want Jaden, they tried to trade up. I don't know what you guys watch that say his son did this, his son's a better GM. I'm pretty sure if Jaden Daniels fell to the Giants.
That was the dumbest thing ever when people were talking. Like, he wanted to do the same thing his son said. He couldn't. The team wasn't willing to trade down. It's just people looking at it, trying to make him look worse.
Right. You think Washington's going to go, oh, you want him here? Yeah. Here you go. You know what? We'll just swap picks. We don't even want anything extra from the Giants. Why do we want a generational franchise quarterback We'll just give him to you, our division rival, who has kicked our ass for 100 years. So let's give that to you. That wasn't going to happen. Hopefully, Jackson Dart is the answer. Hopefully, Jackson Dart wins the Super. Then we'll forget all about it. What did they say in that the whatever? I forgot what that thing was called, where they were showing like the draft process and then bringing it in here. He said, "No one's gonna remember a third round pick if you're right."
Yeah, right? Of course. Yeah.
True.
Speaking of which, JJ, I saw the next one there. JJ, and thank you, brother. I think Holland is the best safety since Antrell Roll. So
I'm going to disagree there, Jay, and I hope I'm wrong, but I think I would have McKinney above
I would too.
Holland.
Yeah.
I like Holland though. I think he's a good pickup, but I think I'd have McKinney above Holland.
I hope that he does.
I think Newbin could end up being better than Holland. I like Newbin a lot. Obviously, year two, but I like Holland a lot though. I think it was a good signing.
Yeah.
I hope that Holland is the best safety since.
That'd be incredible.
I do, but I mean, McKinney was my favorite player, so I'm going to be a little, but I really did think Xavier McKinney was great, and I think again, intangibles. I think when his leadership wasn't in that locker room, I think it hurt the secondary a lot. When you have that on-field captain, that guy that puts you in the right place, that guy that is cerebral, knows his stuff, and the fact that he had more interceptions than our entire secondary last year is pretty bad. But adding Holland, Newbin taking a step up, Drew Phillips looks. I love Drew Phillips, Paulson, Adebo. The secondary is so much improved from last year. It's unbelievable how improved it is. Speaking of third round picks, the Imp, our buddy, the Imp, good to see you, says, I think the addition of Carter and Alexander could signal the trade of Kayvon, and obviously he means Kayvon, for a third rounder. You guys think there's any possibility I don't want to trade Kayvon. I want as many pass rushers as you could get, but is that possible? I mean, when we were talking about the draft, I did mention, is that possible that he gets traded because Abdul Carter could be drafted to take his place? But then they picked up the 5th-year option. So, I mean, is it possible, Adriana, that they can move him?
There was some speculation that they were going to move him on draft night. And I kind of think that if they're going to do it, it will be closer to the trade deadline at this point. Joe Shane has even said you can never have enough pass rushers. And, because of how this team has gone and the fact that everyone is always injured, I think you need to be prepared that you have to have a backup in case, God forbid, someone goes down. And Kayvon's in the last year of his deal. They picked up his 5th-year option. So I think they have the opportunity to let him play out this year and see how he does. And if he has a really good year, then you can always trade him in the spring next year. If you feel like Abdul Carter's that guy and Brian Burns is coming on, and maybe you want to keep Chauncey Golston and let him be the rotational guy. I just think it might be too soon for them to think about trading Kayvon because, they really have to see how things go. I think Kayvon feels like he has something to prove too. I think drafting Abdul Carter was good for Kayvon. I think it's going to kind of motivate him to take it a step further this year. And also he's someone, who's dealt with a couple injuries since he's been here. So I think that's another thing under his belt that he feels like he has to prove that he can play a full season. And I just feel like, having Carter in the rotation is also going to be good for Kayvon because he's not going to be playing all the snaps. So if he shows up and looks pretty good, then it's also good for the Giants. If they decide to trade him, they'll get a better value.
Chris, what do you think? Is there any possibility that happens?
I mean, there's always a possibility. But when it first became apparent that we were more than likely going to draft Abdul Carter, I said that it's possible we could trade him, but I didn't think it was because the Giants were going to be looking to trade him. It was if Kayvon was going to be unhappy with the fact that they were drafting Abdul Carter. That doesn't appear to be the case. He's at camp. He seems like he's happy to be a part of this. And I think it's the smart move on his part. I frequently compared it to the Eagles last year. Look at them with their deep defensive line. I forgot his name off the top of my head, but the defensive tackle that the Patriots signed got a mega deal. He got like $22 million a year. I wanted him badly in the draft like 3 years ago. He was like a 3rd-round pick. I remember he had a monster combine, and the Eagles took him like 2 picks before the Giants were up. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, but he had a big year last year, and he wasn't slated to be a guy that was going to get 100% of the snaps. I think Kayvon should look at that and say, listen, an improved defensive line is only going to get me better opportunities. I may not be on the field quite as much, but I'm going to get better opportunities to get after the quarterback. So I think by all accounts, it seems like he's embracing the fact that they've improved the defensive line and have gotten Abdul Carter. I don't see the need to rush to trade him. I don't have the Brian Burns contract in front of me, but I think you leave all your options open. Like Adriana said, they signed him on the 5th-year option. If Kayvon has a big year this year and they have the ability to extend him, I think that they could very well do that. It's not like the Brian Burns deal is going to last forever. They could probably get out of it if I had to guess. Again, not looking at it after the 2026 season. Kayvon's still really young. And if he's not good, or if he doesn't hit the level where you feel like he warrants an extension, at that point, you explore the possibility of trading him or potentially cutting him, if you could save some money. But yeah, I think they leave all their options open. They let him play the year and see how he operates another year with more talent around him. And if he could stay healthy, I'm not ruling out the possibility that they could extend him. I think everything's on the table.
The way I look at it with Kayvon, I think Adriana's right. I think if they were going to trade him, it would be at the trade deadline. And I look at it this way. If we're out of it, I shouldn't say out of it, because the trade deadline's like week 6. It's early, right? But say we're 1-5 and he's playing like shit. Then maybe if somebody calls and says, listen, we could use him on our team. We feel that a change of scenery will be good for him. He's still young. They have him for another year after the year, so they can extend him if they want, or just let him play under the 5th-year option or whatever it is. And they say, we'll give you a 3rd rounder. The Giants may do it. And the Giants are 1-5, but Kayvon Thibodeau is killing it. And he has 6.5 sacks through 5 games or 5.5 sacks. He's played well. The Giants probably still going to say, well, we're not going to get rid of him because obviously this is a big part of what our defense can be with all these other guys. And then, of course, if the Giants are doing really good, I don't think they would trade him either. I think he'd have to be a real, just to have a terrible first 6 weeks of the season. We'd have to be completely out of it, like 0-5, 1-5, 0-6, whatever. And then I think so. But I honestly don't think they're looking to trade him. I wouldn't want to. The Giants have always been known for the pass rush. They've always had a lot of depth there when they've won Super Bowls. I think Kayvon Thibodeau is poised to have a big year. I really do. I think Abdul Carter, I think a little friendly competition. And I think the fact that Kayvon isn't going to feel the need or the pressure anymore to carry the defense. He was a 5th overall pick. A lot of pressure on him. Now you got a younger, supposedly better guy in Abdul Carter, a guy that asked for number 56, a guy that was a 3rd overall pick in the draft, a guy that many feel was the best player in the draft. All eyes are going to be on him. So now Kayvon Thibodeau can relax and just play football. There's no pressure on him. If he can't succeed in these conditions, I don't know that he ever will. I think he'll have a good year. We'll see. Yep. One last one here. Steve, thank you. How many touchdowns do you predict for Neighbors?
I guess I'll start. I mean, we always do, at least I always do these projections off of assuming they're going to play 17 games. Of course, that may not happen. So projections always come in higher than they probably should be because people get hurt. But if Neighbors plays a full 17 games this year, I'll go 1,300. I think you have a huge year, right? 1,400 yards, 9 touchdowns, 10 touchdowns in that range. I'll go 1,350 and 10 touchdowns if he plays 17 games.
Okay.
Adriana is calculating.
I know. I'm thinking about it. All right. If he's healthy and plays 17 games, I'm going to go a little bit more than Chris. I'm going to say 1,450 in yardage because I think between Russ and or Jameis, he could get there. He's going to be the number 1, no question. And I think the offense is actually going to sling the ball around. And what you said 10 touchdowns?
10 touchdowns, yeah.
I'm going to say 11 just to be different.
I like it. I hope you're right and I'm wrong.
Well, I mean, considering Neighbors had over 1,200 yards last year, and I think he
missed a game. He missed at least one game.
He missed a game or two. And look at the quarterbacks throwing the football. Malik, if he's healthy, big year. I'm going to say this, and I'm hot take. Timestamp it. Bad dog that aged like milk. Malik Neighbors is going to lead the league in receiving yards this year. I'm not going to give you a number, but I'm going there.
I think he could.
Come on,
he must have led the league in targets last year.
He had 109. He had 110 catches last year, and he had over 1,200 yards. He missed the game. And look at the quarterbacks. I think I really do.
I think my projection, if he plays 17 games, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, is conservative. Like I think he could easily get 1,600 if he plays 17 games.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. He's going to lead the league in receiving yards. He's going to get you 13 touchdowns, and Russ is going to say, "Let's fucking leak down there, somewhere, fucking hide down there, somewhere. Fucking somebody's down there somewhere."
Yeah.
If that happens, Bad Dog, that means we have to win at least 8 or 9 games. Like if Malik has that good of a season, then that means, especially with the touchdowns aspect, like last year, yes, he broke 1,000 yards, but he had, I don't even know how many touchdowns he had, but it was definitely
I think it's
5 or 6, maybe 7. Yeah.
Yeah, under double digits. So if he almost doubles his touchdowns, then you have to think like we have to win more games if that's the case.
Yeah, you would think so. Now, granted, he may get some in garbage time too. That's very possible as well. That's why I always say stats don't tell the whole story, but I think Malik Neighbors I think he's poised to have a big, because again, Anthony mentioned this when we did a show a few weeks ago that, there was no deep passes in Neighbors. His deep touchdown passes were against the Colts when he broke a shitload of tackles and took it 60 yards on his own. There really was no deep bomb to him last year. You're going to get some of those this year. And I think that Neighbors is good enough to where you might see a couple of moon balls for 70, 75 yards. And Giants fans are going to lose their mind because we haven't seen.
I'm up in it. The more you guys are talking, I'm going 15-50 and 12 touchdowns.
Let's go.
Big year for Neighbors.
Tudo, I love you, buddy. Bad Dog, September 23rd, 2023. Giants 0, Cowards 40. Not only did I lose that Dumbo, I also hated him since Den making horrible mistakes and stupid calls. I love you, Tudo. I get it. I love when he calls him fat fuck Dumbo. It just makes me laugh. I love you, Tudo. I do. Like I said, maybe it's just me being a fan and just hopeful. I still think that he can do it. I hope that I'm right. But I very well could be wrong. But I love Tudo though. How do you not love Tudo?
I think that is a fair criticism of Daboll though. His first few years with the Giants, not just specifically that Cowboys game, but the Giants, and we've talked about the fact that we want to see the starters play more in the preseason this year than we've seen the first 3 years with Daboll. The Giants seem to be very unprepared early in the season, outside of the first year when they upset the Titans and they got up to the good start. But they've been very underwhelming the 2 previous seasons to start the year, right? They got smoked by the Vikings, 40-0 against the Cowboys.
Yeah, they didn't score the first 6 quarters of 2020.
Yeah, even the Cardinals game where they had the miraculous comeback.
You're out
in the first
20-0 in the first half.
Yeah, so I do think that's a fair criticism. Like the Giants have come out really sloppy the last 2 years with Brian Daboll, and I think they do need to take a look at the way that they're preparing these guys to start the year.
The Imp, thank you, bro. 1687 and 14 touchdowns. I like those. I'm about in that area.
I'll sign up with that, Imp. I'll sign up with that.
I said I think he's going to lead the league in receiving yards. I can definitely see that happening. With that said, that brings us to a close of another edition of Giants Collect. A big shout out to BetUS. It's over here for powering the stream. We appreciate them very much. You can check us out on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. If you listen to us on Apple, leave a 5-star review. That helps out. You can check us out on TikTok and Instagram as well. Follow us on Instagram without question because they're uploading stuff all the time. I'm not on TikTok, so I honestly can't tell you that. But I know I'm on Instagram, and I love what they do on Instagram. Big shout out to them. And again, if you want to become a channel member, you get emojis, you get monthly member messages. You also get your name in the outro. You can do it. Just click the join button. Piece of cake, really. Appreciate you, Adriana and Chris. Always appreciate it. It's a great time doing the show. I can't wait till we actually have some real
stuff to talk about.
It's gonna be great. Let me get this in really quick from That Dark Friend. He says, I don't surrender games in June, starting 2-0. Neighbors best receiver in the league this year. O-line above average. Defense is going to dominate. Let's go. I love it. We're going to end it on that because we want that type of.
Well, if you don't surrender games, we're starting 17-0 then.
What's that?
If he doesn't surrender games before the year starts, we're starting 17-0.
Well, we're not the Eagles. But the Eagles actually might be close. We hear that every year they're going 17-0, but they actually probably could have last year. All right, I don't want to talk about the freaking Eagles. Screw them. Anyway, guys and girls, thank you again for all John and entertaining. It's Bad Diggies. We'll see you on Friday, and we out.